So this is a custom home that I started in late June of 2025, and I finished it up in early April of 2026. This is about a 9.5 month build. This house is 3,179 square feet heated and cooled, and 4,649 square feet total. It's a single story, 4 bed, 3.5 bath, Acadian-style farmhouse. So my clients found this plan online, so we purchased the copyright from one of the online websites, and then that's the plan that we used and made modifications to build this house. So this property is on 5.5 acres, and this is what the home site looked like before we started construction. It basically just a 5.5 acre field with some trees along the edges. And as you can see in this picture, I got my surveyor to stake out where the home is going. And that's what I always do on all my projects. That way we square up the property lines and make sure the home is where we want it. We're not in any easements or any setbacks or anything like that. And so here you can see the property, after we scraped it. So we did a monolithic slab. So in this case, the site work really was just scraping the slab. We did get soil tests done, and it indicated a little bit of clay in at least one of the corners. So we dug out that corner and replaced the soil with sand. Wound up not needing that much soil remediation at this property, but we did do that, for the site work thing at the beginning of construction here. And so, as I mentioned, this was a stem wall foundation. So this was important to the homeowners to get the house, up off the ground, kind of give the home a traditional feel, with the Acadian style farmhouse. Typically farmhouses back in the day would have been on a crawl space and you give you that elevated feel, with some steps up to the porches and getting the house up off the ground. So, my clients in this situation wanted to replicate that. And so that was, important feel for this home. And we did a 3-course stem wall, as you can see here, around the entire home. We did level out the foundation before we started, so we were able to do a consistent 3-course stem wall. And here is the framing a couple days in. So I actually did a video on this house several months back, when we were at this framing stage. And I went over, it was, a fairly long video where I went over the foundation and framing stage, but this gives you, a good look at it, of what the house looked like before the walls were closed up. We did 2x6 exterior walls on this home, 10-foot, 11-foot, and 12-foot ceilings throughout. And so in these shots here, it's before the mechanical went in and the electrical and all that type of stuff. And so here's the house a couple weeks before closing. This would have been in the middle of March. As we're wrapping up, we have the landscaping in at this stage, which consisted of, granite rock around the house, and then a truckload of Bahia sod, which is 7,000 to 8,000 square feet, which is what I typically include. We've got the sprinklers going, on the sod. March is a tough time for the sod because it's kind of, the Bahia sod's starting to take, but not quite yet. So we got the sprinklers running on it. And so here's the home, a few weeks before closing. We got the floors in. Mostly everything is wrapped up at this point. It's really just punch out. So as you can see, we've got the floor covering down, the countertop covering down. And then here is about a week or two before closing. We've got the brown paper up. We've got just the main walkways covered up for flooring. Some of those punch out items knocked out. At this stage, it's really just a couple days of people coming back in the house. We've got some purple tape up for my painters, just to hit the last few punch out spots, which we'll see here, which really it's usually a nick here or a little bit of paint missing there or a screw hole or what have you. And so here we are. The exterior looks about the same as before, but this is, at the point that we're done with construction. So the homeowners in this case, this is about the time we're calling for final inspection, and the homeowners are moving in a few days from now. And so, as you can see on the exterior of this house, my clients did lean into, the white and black contrast. We went with the Moiré Black shingle from CertainTeed, which CertainTeed is my preferred shingle manufacturer because the CertainTeed Landmark is the heaviest shingle in that 30-year class. I think that's really helpful in Florida, with the weather that we experience. And so yeah, we went with black window, black exterior windows and white interior windows in this house. We've got the white board and batten, a couple black board and batten shutters, and also something interesting. So this is a house where we did white siding, but then we painted. Because I always use hardy board, or typically use hardy board fascia and soffit now in all my houses. We painted the hardy board fascia and soffit black. So, combined with the black gutters, kind of creates a nice contrast, as you're coming up the wall with the white siding, we run into the black fascia and soffit and black gutters. And it's an interesting combo. A lot of times people will do, white fascia and soffit, or maybe black fascia and white soffit. So this is a good example of what it looks like when you do the white house with the black fascia and soffit and the black gutters. So as you can see here, we also, something I'll always do at a minimum is I'll paint my porch floors. So we have a nice gray. The color is paved stone that I always paint my porch floors. So we have a nice consistent color on the outside of the house. And so something else that we did on this home is the majority of the exterior got a ledgestone. So we used a cultured stone, ledgestone in this house, with the water table on top, create a nice look, add a little bit of interest to the outside of the home, because obviously we got the white and the black, and we got like a dark gray kind of charcoaly shingle. And then we have a little bit of color variation with that stone wainscoting. So, it adds something really nice to the front and side elevations where we put the stone. So there's a couple other things you can see here. We did a couple of tankless water heaters in this house. So we had a gas propane tank put in, and did a couple of tankless water heaters on each side of the house. And we also did a transfer switch for a future whole house generator. So that's something I do a lot of is, in this case, we didn't install the generator yet, but we went ahead and prepped for it by putting in that whole house generator transfer switch. That way, if in a year from now, the homeowners decide to put in that generator, they already have the transfer switch put in. They don't have to worry about cutting off the power or anything like that. So yeah, really happy with the way the exterior of this house turned out. And then one other thing I'd like to point out on the exterior of this house is the homeowner wanted to go for some more elaborate steps leading up to their front porch, with the raised stem wall and the stone. They kind of wanted to feature that a little bit more. So we did these cheek walls with these much longer treads to add a little bit more of a statement, to the steps of the front porch. And, definitely think walking up to the front of the house with the cheek walls, it adds a little bit more interest there, at the front porch. And so then, going inside the house, we have an open floor plan, which is very typical. As you can see here, we have the fireplace with the more elaborate mantle and the built-ins with the arch tops. And we have the floating shelves, which the puck lights aren't on here, but we do have puck lights in there. And then we have the coffered ceiling with sheetrock beams, which is a very, great way to add ceiling detail. So I'm big on doing ceiling detail in the great room and, primary bedroom. And the sheetrock beams are a great way to do that without adding a lot of cost. So we have a 12-foot ceiling in here with the tic-tac-toe style coffered ceiling, which adds a really nice touch. And so we also carried the sheetrock and plaster coffered ceiling detail into the dining room, where we have wainscoting on the wall, and we also carried that same coffered ceiling detail into the office, where we did a color drenching, which is becoming really popular nowadays. And I'm really happy with the way this kitchen turned out in the house. So my clients went with a very traditional look, white raised panel cabinet with, white quartz countertops. And, we did stacked cabinets with glass uppers. The cabinets went to the ceiling, which we have an 11-foot ceiling in here. So we had to do 72-inch upper cabinets. And we have this, decorative angled hood that adds interest in the center of the kitchen. And we have a really nice large window to look out into the back porch. I mean, really kind of checks all the boxes of your traditional farmhouse style kitchen. And we've got the pot filler above the stove, and we have an extra large stove, and we ran the countertops up the backsplash for a very continuous look, which I like to do just for color continuity. So we're doing that a lot nowadays. And in general, great looking kitchen. The fixtures, a little bit of gold on them, adds a pop on that, and then also the cabinet handles, and really just a great looking kitchen. And then off the kitchen we have this butler's pantry, which I'm really excited about as well. So we carry the cabinets from the kitchen into the butler's pantry, and we have these stained floating shelves in here, and this herringbone pattern subway tile that we ran in all the exposed backsplash area. So in between all the shelves, above the shelves, in the little coffee bar area. And I know my clients are really excited about this pantry as well. And so we'll get a little quick shot of the laundry room here, and then we'll head to the primary bedroom and bathroom. So, lots of windows in this primary bedroom, nice tray ceiling. And then in the bathroom, so we have another herringbone subway tile backsplash. Between this area and the pantry, my tile guy was doing these herringbone style backsplashes for a good week and a half, just because of all the extra cuts and the extra layout attention that's needed. But my tile guy, knocked it out of the park. In my opinion, the finished product, the statement it adds, is great for the house. So, definitely worth the extra time and effort it took to put these together. And it looks great, with the mirror choices my clients made, and, the sconce lights on the wall. It definitely all came together really well. And then, also in this primary bath, we have a really extra large shower that turned out great. We use large format tiles on the walls, and then on the floor we did this decorative pattern tile with a linear drain, which is what I'm doing on most of my homes nowadays, the linear shower drains, just for a cleaner look, and gives us the opportunity to use larger tiles. So definitely, excited with the way this turned out as well. Very traditional look, while still, minimizing grout lines, and we're able to give my clients a really good look here for the primary bath. And moving to the primary bedroom closet, we got that all wrapped up. We used solid shelving in here as we did throughout the house. The only thing that's missing is the countertop on the island, which is going to match the bathroom countertop, and that'll be installed shortly. But yeah, in general, just this area turned out great. And heading to the powder bath, so we did more decorative tile up the backsplash here. So it adds a little bit of interest in the powder bath. And then another really cool feature that I haven't touched on yet is this 10-foot tall sliding glass door. So lets in lots of light, so lots of glass there in the great room. And then one of the guest bathrooms of this house, really fun, really exciting. So we did a vertical subway tile, kind of has a little bit of a retro look to it, with the champagne bronze fixtures from Delta. It turned out really great. And here we'll get another look at one of the other guest bathrooms in the house. So, very traditional wallpaper, more traditional cabinets in this one, with, mirrors that are on the more traditional side. And then also in this bathroom, we did a zero entry shower. So that way it'd be wheelchair accessible if ever needed. Still large format tiles on the walls. And in this case, also decorative tile on the floor with the linear drain. But yeah, very happy with the way this house turned out. That 9.5 month build time for a 3,200 square foot home is really, really on schedule. And there were a few delays in this house. There were a couple suppliers or subcontractors that ran a little bit behind, but nothing major. That 9.5 month build time for a home this size is very typical. And also, again, really happy with how it turned out. It is a great, white and black farmhouse, which is very popular. It's been popular for a few years now. I know, more people are going to want to build this style home in this area. Looking out from the front porch of this home, just a beautiful view. I know my clients are really excited to get, moved in and, spend some time on this front porch, taking in these sunsets. And so I'm going to continue to post videos on my YouTube channel of my finished projects, and also check out my website or find me on Google, Amira Custom Homes, to see more of my work.